Curt Luthye, thank you so much for talking to us. We know your time is very precious as we look at potentially another storm striking an area that's already been devastated by a hurricane. Tell me what your volunteers are up against.
Yeah, we're really proud of the people and the assets that we are sending to the affected areas. Right now, we have more than 70 volunteers and employees that have headed that way. They're on the ground right now providing care for those affected by Helene, and they're already on the ground making preparations for Hurricane Milton that's going to hit Florida later this week.
Does this situation of back-to-back disasters present a unique challenge to your organization?
I think one of the things that we want the public to understand is these back-to-back events are going to start happening more frequently with climate change. So we know that this is going to happen. We are doing our work right now to prepare for that, to make sure that we have the right number of trained volunteers and leaders to go into these places and really help folks get ready and start to prepare themselves and then respond and recover to these events that are coming more frequently, and they're bigger and they're more intense.
Now, in a situation like this where the storm is still approaching, do you wait until it passes to send resources in, or are there already demands and you know what the folks down there are going to need?
Yeah, so we work very closely with our government partners and other nonprofit partners that we have. And we are actually right now getting emergency shelters set up. People can start to come that way. They can go to a couple of sites, to redcross.org. They can call 1-800-RED-CROSS. They can download the Red Cross app, and they can find a shelter that's closest to them so that they can actually start to make preparations to evacuate from their house and move into that shelter that's going to be the best and safest place for them during the storm.
Tell me about some of the individuals that you're sending from our region down there. What are their skill sets to help in a situation like this?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, there's an enormous number of opportunities to be helpful in a situation like this. And so we have a lot of people that are actually doing work in and around emergency shelters. So they understand how to kind of pull all the partners together, make sure that there's healthcare, like a nurse, that there's disaster counselors there if people want to talk to a counselor about what they're feeling. But we're providing food, we're providing care and comfort. And so that's really one of the main things that we're doing right now, is to be present with people as they're going through this really traumatic time. But we also have people that are working, again, in that liaison role with our government partners. So we have people that are sitting in an emergency operations center, coordinating with our partners to make sure that there's nobody that's being left out, that all the communities that are affected are getting the resources that they need.
Let's do this in what I like to call response by the numbers. Run
Sure.
down some of the numbers that are relevant to the story.
Yeah, so we're right now, so for Hurricane Helene, we've served over 35,000 overnight stays. So that's people staying in shelters across those multi-state affected area, and hundreds of thousands of meals and snacks. And we do anticipate that that is an ongoing need. So we are in it for the duration. We're planning and making preparations to make sure that we can provide that food, shelter, hydration for people as long as they need it, especially as there are new communities that are being kind of, access is being granted to those areas and new people are kind of coming out with new needs. The Red Cross is committed to being there and providing what they need for the duration. In Florida, we have probably 800 people on the ground right now that are there, and they're making those preparations. And as needed, we will continue to bring people from, other places in the country where we can bring in resources and that they can provide their leadership and their assistance as well.
And have the volunteers from our area, you may have said this already, did they already leave? Have they departed?
Yeah, so this is something, again, we started before Helene made landfall, and we continue to send out people daily. We have more people going out today. We've had people from the DMV area, Maryland, DC, Virginia, that are all traveling right there. We have some of our larger assets, like we have an emergency response vehicle, which is one of these larger Sprinter van type vehicles that you can do mobile feeding. You can pass a meal out of the window. You can take crates of water, cases of water out to people. So whatever their particular mission is, we both sent people and these resources so that we can participate in the ongoing recovery.
And I think ongoing recovery, I think that's so key because oftentimes, the news media will move on to the next big story in a month or two, and we may not be talking so much about the impacts of Helene and Milton, but the Red Cross will still be there helping. Tell me how this region supports the efforts down there well beyond the day of impact of when the storm makes landfall in the weeks and
Yeah,
months ahead.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question because we're not in the affected area. And so one of the things that we can do is continue to, as volunteers cycle off, volunteer will do a 2 or a 3 week deployment, and then they'll come home, and then we'll send somebody to backfill that. So we will do that as long as that need persists. But the other thing is that we collect blood, right? And in these affected areas, there were a lot of blood donation days that got disrupted. And so for us, we can actually go and we can redouble our efforts to collect blood that might not have been collected because of these hurricanes, so that hospitals and people who need it for surgeries and mothers who have complications with birth still have that needed blood supply. And then obviously always financial resources. If people want to donate, they can do that. They can, again, go to redcross.org, redcross.org/Helene. They can call 1-800-RED CROSS.
And is there also a need for blood because of the surge in injuries that people get hurt in storm-related accidents?
I think that's one way to think about it, but what might be a more accurate way to think about it is hospitals need it for things that they have ongoing, right? Those emergency surgeries, those car accidents. And the Red Cross already provides blood to those facilities. And when we have a disruption in the collection cycle, the processing cycle, that's just resources that we know that hospitals need that are not coming all the way through. And so because the Red Cross collects nationally, we can actually move some things around. We can collect more here in Virginia, Maryland, DC, and we can get that needed supply to hospitals that have that ongoing need.
I mean, the Red Cross does so much in the days after an event like this happens and in the months and weeks after, but a new twist to what's already a complicated situation is this new issue of misinformation that a lot of volunteers are being confronted with. And I know the organization had to put out a statement on this front as well. What do you want the public to know about your efforts and how money and resources are being spent?
Yeah, the Red Cross has been a trusted organization for more than 130 years, and we take it seriously. And so we really highly recommend that people go to those trusted sources for information, like FEMA, like their local, county, state emergency managers and local officials, and to the Red Cross for our official news of what we're doing. And that's the best place. Go to that trusted source where you are going to get facts. And we also want to let people know that we were there before the hurricane made landfall. We have local volunteers that work day in and day out to respond to things like home fires or house fires. And that happens 365 days a year. So the Red Cross has a presence there. We have disaster trained volunteers that are there. The size and scope of Hurricane Helene necessitated us sending some external resources. So we are one Red Cross across the United States of America. And so we're there to make sure that communities can respond and recover really well.
In a real practical sense, though, how does this misinformation complicate the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I do think it does make it harder. I think people who are have been affected by this disaster are, it might make it more complicated to know who to believe. And so that's where we continue to just have that constant message. Go to your trusted sources, rely on your local, county, state emergency managers and officials, and they're going to tell you the most accurate facts that they have as available.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Curt?
I just think if I know that events like this people are really moved to do something. And I would say that there's some really basic things to do. So you can volunteer yourself, you can sign up for an organization or the Red Cross, and you can learn how to be a disaster responder. I think you can donate blood, which is a high need, and you can also consider giving a financial gift because that money is going to go to people who are affected.
Is there any other concern with the speed in which we're seeing these natural disasters happen? Does that worry you?
Um, you try to be optimistic in this world, in this field, and so I think we're looking at it with our eyes wide open. We know that these things are going to happen more frequently. I think the Red Cross has an ongoing campaign to address and talk about climate-caused disasters and the frequency there. And we would encourage, again, every individual, family, group, and government to see what they can do to bend the trend line down so that we have fewer of these disasters caused by climate change. So there's a lot of work to be done from a lot of partners, and the Red Cross is in it with our partners to make that better.
Well, thank you so much, Curt, for the work you do and all the help that you're giving these communities that so desperately need it.
Yeah, thank you for helping us get the message out.
Absolutely. Thank